This is the Business of Apps podcast, bringing you actionable insights from the leaders of the global app industry and the world's fastest growing apps. You can find more app news, data and analysis over at businessofapps.com.
Welcome to the Business of Apps podcast. On this show, we invite app industry professionals to cover various topics. We promise to do our best to keep it both insightful but brief. In this episode, we have Simon Thillay, Head of ASO at Apptweak. Simon, welcome to the Business of Apps podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Terrific. Thank you for coming this August. I know everybody is on vacation this month, but you've got your invitation and you're here. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right. So, okay. Have you ever had these moments when you're searching for a well-known app on the App Store and all of a sudden you see other apps show up in the paid search results and you wonder, somebody's trying to piggyback that app. Well, that's right. Apple's App Store guidelines for search ads platform do allow marketers to bid on brand keywords, and it doesn't matter if they own that brand name or not. So today, Simon will tell us about how and why you should bid for your brand keywords and more. But as always on this show, before doing all that, let's talk about you, Simon, first. Please tell us about yourself. How did you get into app marketing?
So that's sort of a funny story. I was basically looking when I was studying, wanting to work in the video game industry, and I ended up doing an internship in marketing at a small mobile game studio in the Netherlands. And that's where I got to do so many different things, including ASO. That was kind of the first step. And then about a year later, when I looked for my first full-time job, I ended up joining Deezer, a French music streaming service, where they needed someone to help with ASO, SEO, and business tracking, advertising tracking. And that's basically how I got to find out everything growth related that I know.
Is it like Spotify in France, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's a French Spotify, less known worldwide, but quite popular in France.
Gotcha. Okay, I remember last year when we talked with Marie from your team, she gave us a quick sketch of what is Apptweak. Just for the benefit of folks who didn't have a chance to listen to her, what is Apptweak, and perhaps any recent updates in the company you would like to mention?
Sure. So Apptweak is an ASO and market intelligence tool first, and we are a growing company. We've been around since 2014, since I recall, for what I recall. We've started with keyword optimization, and we've built a complete platform around all the data that marketers may want to use for ASO and more, since now we're expanding to other side of app marketing. We're tracking more app on Facebook Ads Library and others. We're expanding in market intelligence, compiling more data thanks to our amazing data science team. And in terms of recent news, I think the most important recent news we've had is that we raised quite a lot of money earlier this year because we're aiming for a new stage of our growth. And so I'm piggybacking this to also give a quick word that we're hiring in many different positions. Listing all of them would be hard. So if anyone listening to this is interested in new challenge, just head over to apptweaks.com, find our jobs page, and you'll find everything there.
Congrats. That's always exciting when it's happening. You're going up, and venture fund is always the fuel to fulfill your ideas, to build new tools, to build new services. That's awesome. So by this point, all of us know that late April, this April, Apple finally introduced iOS 14.5, which was delayed for a number of months because it was supposed to be introducing not only new features for the iOS users, but some features that are related directly to the way how developers should be interacting with mobile users. And specifically, I'm talking about ATT, Apple, so transparency, app tracking transparency framework that requires some developers to ask users permission to track their data. So how would you estimate, how does it change, how did it influence the Apple Search Ads platform and its significance for the app marketers?
So the funny thing is that if you look at the direct impact of ATT on Apple Search Ads, it's almost zero, because Apple Search Ads was a one marketing channel that was going to be exempted out of it. And instead of users having to agree to tracking when they open an app in Search Ads, you have to opt out from your phone settings. But it did change a lot for marketers, because that has meant that everyone was starting to work with the assumption that they would not lose a lot of tracking data from any other advertising channel, and starting seeing Search Ads as the best option, at least in the short term, to keep performance marketing and keep conducting performance marketing on some channels like it used to be before iOS 14.5, when they had to also rework the rest for many different channels. So this was kind of a shelter network, where we've heard quite a few people say they would increase their Search Ads budget as a way to know what they were going into, at least for a while, and being able to understand what would happen with other channels.
Right, and that was an initial reaction. I think by now, it's August, everybody who worried about the impact should get their mind by now, because this is like they've got a chance to test the impact for a number of months and see, like, not rely on the expectations and forecasting, but from actual experience to see what's going on with their user acquisition campaigns, and how many users are actually saying no to app tracking, and just adjust their app user acquisition campaigns framework. So let's switch the gears a little bit. Well, we're moving swiftly through the 20s of the 21st century, right? And you don't get to hear this word in your daily news feed, cannibalism. Fortunately, we will not be talking about cannibalism in its original meaning, but keywords cannibalism, specifically for the app marketing purpose. So it's about the Apple Search Ads campaigns when you're bidding on your brand keywords while you're organically already number one for the same keywords. So you may go like, why would you do that, right? What's the reason? What's the point? So what should brands know about these campaigns? What should they factor in, and how they can actually measure results and see if they're actually moving in the right direction?
So the first thing they should know is that keyword cannibalization is not only about their brand name. It's the most obvious case, but if you're number one for a generic keyword, then it's also, if you start bidding on it, you can also expect that there will be some sort of cannibalization, because basically it's just going to be if you end up paying for a download that you could have gotten for free just by having done certain marketing efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether you should do it or not is always kind of the conundrum. There's the pressure of seeing when someone else is bidding on a keyword for which you're number one, especially when it's your brand. If you're, I don't know, Netflix, and you see HBO rank for your name before you do,
Right.
you are definitely feeling attacked, and you have to think, okay, what is the risk that someone is going to go to my competitor instead of me when I was the obvious search intent? And that's where it becomes much more complex, because you have to think, am I really the search intent, or is it just that people want something that they perceive is going to be what I offer? Um, so you may think, okay, I have to defend myself. And at the same time, when you do, you end up thinking, okay, but how much defense did I actually need to do? And so that's something I've started covering in the past few months, in trying to come up with some very rough mathematical model to estimate the actual cost of a defended install. Because if you look in Apple search ads at your brand defense campaigns, you're going to find very low CPIs. Usually these are campaigns that convert very well, and Apple is going to make sure that you can defend yourself well. But that's just because it's in their interest that you don't pay too much, but you easily agree to pay as a result. And with the model that I've developed, basically the challenge was to say, how can we make certain assumptions on how competitors are going to convert for our brand name? Because the difference between how I convert for my brand and how they do is going to be the difference in, these were the installs I needed to defend, and these are the installs I didn't need to defend and I just cannibalized.
Exactly.
And so with that, we just try to come up with a number, and here I have to insist it's an estimate. It's just meant to help come up with a more objective opinion of, is it worth paying for your own brand, to say this is the actual cost of a defended install.
Right, because there's no way you can see what's going on in the heads of your competitors, what they're calculating, what numbers do they see. But you can make the reasonable assumption. Okay, if in your example, it's Netflix, so you're kind of safely assuming this is your loyal folks, people who do love your as Netflix. They're not just want to watch any movie. They're going for stuff that are presenting on your platform. So you're kind of safe not to bid for your keyword, but that may like I think it should be like keyword by keyword case, because just like you're saying, if they're seeing me and somebody who's doing the same stuff that I'm doing, shooting great video content, what user will be doing it in this case? Will he go to me or just switch to that other option, just for the sake of curiosity, right?
And that's also where you need to keep track of who is attacking you.
Right.
Because again, if I'm Netflix and I'm seeing HBO, I might think these guys are serious. If I'm seeing a small pirate app that's been based on pirated shows on
Right.
YouTube, I don't think it's possible anymore, but just for the sake of argument, I won't feel the same level of threat. And so this is where you have to think, okay, not every threat is equal and not every threat requires defense. And on the other hand, you also have to think that, yeah, even people look a lot for brands, but sometimes they look for a brand just as a way to think they know the product and they want to see their options, while others are looking for a brand and are already determined to download only that app.
Right. If you've reached this point of Xerox being the synonym for doing copies, or Google being a synonym for searching, people may be using your brand keyword just like in the broader sense, not you, but just to get the bunch of options for watching movies or listening music or stuff. And that can be the threat, because their intent wasn't to watch your stuff, but to go to your competitors.
Yeah.
Okay, switching the sides. So what if a brand app marketing team wants to hunt for the competitor's brand keywords? Will your model work backwards?
Yeah, I mean, I would not necessarily use a model anymore, because basically, if you're not ranking #1 organically, there's not going to be a question of how much cannibalization are you going to do. But
Yeah.
you can use the same sort of assumptions of thinking, okay, if I'm trying to target another brand, what are going to be my options? And obviously, you want to target someone who's going to be perceived, or rather someone whose product will look similar to yours, or your product will look similar to theirs, as a way of convincing those who are not buying the brand but only buying the product.
Mhm.
Another option you have, this is something I've seen more recently as well, is that sometimes you may want to buy another brand as a way to build your own notoriety. And here, what you can think of doing is buying more of an adjacent brand than a competitor, and then you probably won't be stealing installs. People would either download both apps, or they would just get to hear about you but not download you. But it can still be a way of making your product known. So if we think about staying with video but moving to YouTube, maybe a video editing app that wants to have a quick upload to YouTube would be interesting in buying the brand keyword YouTube, just as a way to say, if you are looking for uploading your own video and editing your video before you upload to YouTube, this is my product. And so this is also a situation where Apple Search Ads can be interesting, because you might not rank organically well for YouTube, but you will have a chance to use their popularity to make your product known.
So essentially, it's about elevating your brand recognition.
Absolutely.
All right. Whenever I talk to an app marketer, every once in a while pops up this topic of creatives. The set of graphics and text, like the whole you're using for your ad campaigns, because this is one of the major levers that marketers have when it comes to advertising their apps. Any thoughts about creative sets along the lines of what you were just discussing?
Yeah, I would say yes. With Apple Search Ads specifically, creative sets have been around for a while, and I've seen in the past some very smart creative sets being published, where basically people started with creatives that were kind of selling the overall proposition of their app, but also added some specific creatives, specific screenshots towards the end of the gallery that would target more of a specific user persona. And so, for instance, if you have a diet and exercising app, you could be interested in having a generic, unique selling proposition of get in better shape, and then decline that proposition with some creatives about how you can help people having a better diet, or people exercise easily with no material, just exercise from home. And so with that, what you can do in creative sets is going to be play around the order of creatives that appear for a certain keyword. And so if you're targeting some keywords that are very specific to dieting, then suddenly you want to show the creatives that speak of that specifically first, and vice versa. If you want to show something about exercising, you have that option as well. The last thing that I can mention quickly here is also that this is going to become a much larger game, because so far it was only available for Apple Search Ads, but with iOS 15, we're now going to have this feature called custom product pages, where people will be able to have different creatives that through a unique landing page in the App Store. And so if you have campaigns from whatever other advertising network that is compatible, where you just want to say send to this page, instead of showing a very generic set of creatives, you'll be able to really tailor what creatives are shown based on where people are coming from.
So you're approaching folks on Snapchat, on Twitter, on TikTok, and you're talking in different language to these guys. And you want to make sure that the landing page will be along the lines on the same language you're using to communicate your app to folks on these platforms.
Exactly.
And if I remember correctly, this is up to 35 landing pages.
Yes, that's the initial announcement from Apple.
I wonder why the specific number. Probably just arbitrary choice. Anyway, Apple also introduced A/B testing. The feature that app marketers on the iOS side have been waiting, begging for years, because the Android has been having this feature for a number of years. And that wasn't the case. People were trying to approximate their A/B testing results from Android to iOS, with a mixed success. So now they've got it. I'm not sure when exactly it's going to be released. Probably, this September, October, with the earliest iOS 15. A/B testing will be available to app marketers. So what do you think about this update?
First thing is that, as everyone else, it's about time we got this toy to play with. High expectations. To be honest, this is more of a dream. Ideal than expectation would be to get better statistical reliability in the test results than what we have in Google Play. Now, the announcement itself was quite short, and as a result, I think here it's really Apple copying Google, because that can also happen. But nevertheless, it's still good news that we're getting this. It's still going to require a lot of work to make sense of the results that are being shown, because you will have to consider how reliable are these results going to be. And also, it's finally going to help answer the famous question of how similar or different are Android users and iOS users, because we've loved talking about what could these differences be, or at times measure them through very specific cases. But now we're going to see a lot more developers being able to invest in having a different creative experience for iOS and Android by measuring through data if it's worth showing the same thing or not.
Right, from assumptions to data points to hard data. Now, looking back at your experience as the App Store optimization expert, what would be your suggestions for what ASO mistakes to avoid?
I think the first one is just don't expect too much out of it. And the second, just meaning that we still see a lot of people only now finding out about ASO and thinking that they can get plus 300% downloads just out of this, almost out of thin air. And this is where we have to say, this is going to be a process. You're not going to get a major win from just one time going here and not really being sure, just following basic guidelines. A lot of people are already doing it, so now it's tougher to get those super high results. They're still available, but they will take more time. The other mistake I see is a lot of people trying to do everything at once and not really adjusting their ASO strategy to the rest of the marketing. And you really have to think, okay, this is going to be, you have to synchronize with marketing, with a product as well, to really make sure that here you're going to do ASO in a consistent way where your message is going to fit what you're trying to tell users everywhere else, and that it shows the best argument at the best time. And so this is where you still have that possibility to unlock growth from ASO, but it's not going to be as simple as just add 3 keywords like it used to be a few years ago, where very few people were doing it.
Right, the market keeps growing, the number of folks who are doing app store optimization right at the same moment with you sitting in offices in the other parts of the world, uh, just making your work tougher. It's not that easy as it used to be, and having reasonable expectations is always great. It's that's the opposite because you're expecting a lot, and in actuality you're getting very less. It's better to have the opposite effect where your expectation is quite modest, and if you're getting results better that you're expecting, it's always it feels more rewarding. Experiments, tracking the results, having a plan, reading experts, get get yourself educated, and use the right tools like you guys provide, for instance. Now, all right, so that was actually the last question about the topic on the table. And now we have a small portion of the show where I'm asking just a few quick questions to every guest on the show, just for the sake of the audience to know them a little bit better. So these are just quick questions. And the first question is this. So what smartphone do you have now?
So now I mostly use an iPhone 7. I used to be on Android. I still have that phone as well because my job requires to be aware of what happens on both OSs. But made the switch to iOS mostly for commodity reasons when I moved here in Belgium, and yeah, using both phones now.
All right. What was your first mobile phone, if you can still remember that model?
I'm not sure I do. I'm almost sure I had the famous unbreakable Nokia, but I don't remember the name, the exact name of the model anymore.
Gotcha. That was from the era of Nokia, where seems like everybody had that phone of one of the model, like 3210 or something. Because I do
3310,
remember,
I think.
yeah, with a green screen and the battery they could last a week or more. Just unimaginable thing for a smartphone today. Imagine you've left your smartphone at home today. What would be the most missing feature for you?
Um, I would say either texting or music. These are the two. WhatsApp and Deezer are the two apps I use the most.
Now, when you're looking at your iPhone 7 and you go, would it be great this thing can do something else, like on top of what it's been capable of doing up till now? Could be software, hardware, and it not necessarily could be something more, probably less, be not so prominent in your life, or you're expecting more features to be useful for you.
I think there's not that much more than I want out of my phone. Sometimes it's I'd say it's more of how apps are built today, where I miss having uh mobile games, for instance, that can really go offline and don't use any data. Because when I travel, the network is not always great, and so that's where having something that can just stay active on offline mode is great.
Okay, and just very, very, very last question before I let you go. How can people get in touch with you and get more information about what you do?
Um, I would say LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm mostly on these two socials, and otherwise through the Apptweak website. Our customer success team and I work very closely. So if there's ever a question, I'm happy to also answer through our team and Intercom.
Terrific. Thank you for your time and comment on our podcast, Simon. Thank you.
For having me.
Bye bye.
Bye.
And that was Simon Thillay, head of ASO at Apptweak. To listen to more episodes, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts. Just search for Business of Apps and you will find us easily. We release episodes on Mondays, so subscribe and you'll be able to get new episodes on your smartphone, tablet, or computer as soon as we release them. And please don't forget to leave us a review and comment on iTunes. It is highly appreciated. And all episodes will also be available on businessofapps.com. Thank you for listening. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Business of Apps podcast. For more, head on over to businessofapps.com.